proportional response. Book 1, Chapter 13, Part 9. A Drubbing Before Dinner. Hannibal looked at his new girlfriend, standing there in all her glory, staring down at his friend after delivering some rather harsh words, and felt torn. On the one hand, he didn't like his new paramour taking that tone of voice, nor attitude, with his Bond brother. On the other, he'd never seen Henry at a total loss for words, much less sitting there, looking completely poleaxed. He wanted to let his friend off the hook, but knew that, sometimes, the only way to get through to the man was with a bulldozer. And Vashna certainly was a bulldozer, despite her relatively small size. Henry recovered quickly, spread his hands on the table in a conciliatory gesture, and leaned forward a bit.
Okay, look, Eldia is a great woman, and I will confess, now that I think about it, not unattractive in appearance, but I don't really look at her that way.
Hannibal crooked an eyebrow at him, but Vashna beat him to the punch.
Bollocks. I believe that is the English word for it, yes. I have seen you watch her when she gets ready to fight, or walks off the field, and you can never resist a good look at her ass. And, before you tell me that hardly makes her unique, I damned well know better. Sure, you will take a glance every now and then at other women, but there are only 3 that you will really watch if you get the chance. And she is one of them. Okay. Fine, yes. She is nice to look at. I will also admit that I do enjoy spending time with her. She is smart, vivacious, witty, and has the most entertaining stories of my brother. Here's you. Still, I just don't think of her that way. I mean, idle admiration of her figure, and those stares are more about the way she moves than her shape. I'll have you know, that is one thing. Real attraction, though.
A series of emotions flashed across Vashna's face. Abject fury. She thinks he is lying. Astonishment, bewilderment, and finally amusement. Why is she amused? He looked over at his Bond brother and realized that Henry meant exactly what he'd just said. He didn't believe he was attracted to Eldia. That can't be right, Yasin. Vashna threw her head back and chortled, leaving Henry, once again, with a confused look on his face. She clucked her tongue at him and shook her head as she spoke.
Oh, you poor, work-addled, clueless man. So able to see the tiniest clues in other people, but no ability to monitor your own state.
She stopped then and looked him in the eyes.
No, that isn't true. You work hard to stay exquisitely aware of yourself, don't you?
She quirked a single eyebrow at him.
It has just been that long, hasn't it?
Henry shook his head.
Look, I know when I am attracted to a woman, it is actually something I work hard to manage about myself, and I tell you...
Vashna interrupted.
You can tell me all you want, my dear man. I believe that you believe that. I also believe that you are wrong. Don't look at me like... Okay, fine, but realize that I am only doing this because of your own hard head.
Vashna brought up her wrist comp and hit a few buttons. A hollow displayed of Henry speaking to Eldia. His cheeks flushed as she, obviously deliberately, flashed a bit of cleavage at him, and his hand flushed as she made some excuse to touch him. She brought the video down and quirked an eyebrow at Henry, who sat there with a slowly hardening look on his face.
Look, a few seconds of video. Wait, no, don't start. You probably have more examples than that.
Henry sighed deeply, closed his eyes, and sat back. Vashna started to speak again, but Hannibal grabbed her hand. He'd seen this before and knew to wait it out. Henry sat there for several moments with his eyes moving rapidly behind closed eyelids. He abruptly sat up, ramrod straight in his chair as his eyes flew open.
Oh no. Yes, you're right. Hannibal, I am so sorry. I really didn't mean to, and I hope that you understand I have nothing but respect for you or your family, but I think your lady here is right.
Hannibal felt his hands blush at the "your lady" statement and saw Vashna's flush as well. He nearly missed as Henry continued.
And I am attracted to your aunt. I didn't catch it about myself because it is real, solid feelings, not just a base sensual sort of attraction.
Hannibal sat in confusion. Why would Henry be apologizing? Vashna interrupted by laughing.
Oh dear me. You sit here apologizing to Hannibal when... Henry, do human men actually get upset when their closest friends become attracted to family members?
She then sat down and broke out in a fit of giggles. Henry, once again, looked poleaxed and blinked several times, obviously trying to wrap his head around a strange concept. He finally spoke.
Wait, you mean?
Vashna nodded, barely able to speak through her mirth.
Henry, why do you think my boy here?
Again, that lightning-like thrill as she casually laid claim to him.
Brought his aunt here in the first place.
Inibal felt his face go slack as the implications of Vashna's words sank in. Wait, human men get offended by Bond brothers dating relatives. No, wait, they don't have a word for Bond brother. In fact, they have all sorts of trouble with male friendships, some of which were being deliberately caused by our social engineering. Oh man. He took a few moments to consider how he'd have felt if some of the other not-so-close male friends, ones who bragged about their conquests as much as any human from any movie, and thought about how he'd have felt if they had hit on his aunt. His face slowly turned from Vashna to Henry, and their eyes met. His friend wore a slack-jawed expression that matched his own. He couldn't help it. He laughed. Not a large laugh, or even a lengthy one. The absurdity of the entire thing, the irritation that he'd been feeling at Henry for holding himself back, the doubt at himself for thinking the two of them might be a good match, all of it came out in one explosive bark of laughter. Henry's head rocked straight back, chin remaining level at the sound. His friend blinked slowly a few times, then blinked rapidly and brought his head to a normal position. Enibal felt a smile stretch on his face and was answered by a bemused grin from Henry. Vashna, for her part, just stood there giving both of them side-eye, until Henry finally spoke with self-recriminating laughter in his voice.
Our cultures are so terribly similar. Yes, I know, largely to your people's efforts, that sometimes I get complacent where I shouldn't.
Inibal shook his head.
No, brother, that is not fair. Sometimes it is hard to realize the blind spot is there, and you have to know to look before you can go searching. The only cure would be to spend a lifetime trying to chase down every nuance of difference, and few manage that with their own culture, much less others.
Vashna nodded to the two of them and held out a hand to Inibal. He took it and rose. So much more to be said, but none of it needs to be, and everyone is outside at the practice. They nodded to Henry, and he gave them a jaunty salute with a wink. Whole volumes of communication in those gestures, right across the cultural divide. Eldia balanced the basket of Glunter pastries in one hand and raised the other to knock on the door. She paused a moment and tried to settle her nervous stomach. I am going to box Vashna's ears, princess or no, so help. Henry obviously is attracted to me, and was halfway acting like it when he invited me to this dinner, but then none of his behavior since indicated it would be more than a semi-formal dinner between colleagues. Then I complained to Vashna about that during fighter practice a couple of days ago, and she came out of that last meeting, tardy getting back to the list field, with Enibal's hand in hers and that wolfish grin. I thought the grin was just her finally catching the boy's hand. I suspect Henry boxed his ears like I asked, but something tells me that there was more to it than that. Every time I've tried to commiserate over this insufferable man, she has answered with that same grin and changed the subject. And the one time I've seen Henry since, just passing in the hall, he winked at me. Winked. Damn it, Eldia Pensa, you are dithering, and you damned well don't dither. Knock on the damned door. What is your problem? Well, maybe that I'm about to go try to woo a non-venter who has been trying to woo me, or is totally uninterested in me, and I'm going to make an ass of myself. Oh, like you have never tripped a non-venter into bed. There was that Themiac. She smiled to herself at the memory. It had been a fun little fling, and she still thought of him whenever she found a stray feather escaped her pillows. Okay, maybe because he is human. Yeah, right. You would have pulled that Texan into your room on the lift if not for... Oh, shut up and knock already, woman. She drew a deep breath, put on her best smile, and knocked on the door. It opened immediately into a darkened room, lit only by a pair of candles on a smallish table. Besides the candles, the table held two place settings, a bottle of what she assumed to be wine, cooked meat, which made her nose sing, some hardish-looking yellow substance, bread, a single red flower that she assumed wasn't part of the menu, and a bowl of some sort of white, lumpy material. Henry sat facing her when the door opened, but he immediately put down his phone, jumped out of his chair, took the basket from her with one hand and took her hand with the other. He then gave her a smile that could have charmed the feathers off a Themec monk, bent, pulled her hand up, and, without breaking eye contact, laid a soft, light kiss on the back of her hand. Fire raced up her arm and lit her shoulder, her blush turning her arm nearly purple. She looked in alarm at his face. It had turned slightly red, his cheeks a pale rosy color. Panic welled in her, and Henry abruptly stood straight, dropped her hand, backed up a step, set her basket on the table, and raised both his hands while the color that had alarmed her drained from his cheeks. He spoke quickly.
"I am sorry. I didn't mean to presume. It is just, I thought."
His sudden movements, after showing signs of a double heart failure, startled her for a moment, and she blinked rapidly. As he started to protest, blood finally returned to her brain from other areas of her body, and she shook her head in self-irritation. "Damn it, woman. You know that is how they blush. On their faces instead of their hands. Now fix it." She took a fast step forward and took his hand in both of hers, then brought that hand to her cheek.
"I'm sorry, Henry, and you didn't presume at all."
She gave him a slight giggle. It sounded forced to her own ears, but it brought a hint of the color back to his cheeks.
"No, you dear man, you didn't presume at all. You so completely did not presume that you caught me off guard, and I forgot one of the differences between our species. If a Venter's face changes colors the way yours did, it means that he needs to get to a hospital immediately, not that he is enjoying himself. So, swept me off my feet before the evening even began. Maybe, presumed. Oh dear boy, no, not that."
She gave him her best saucy smile and traced one finger down the line of his pale, strong, handsome, hairy, well-defined. "Later, woman. Damn it. Later. Sure." The color returned to his cheeks, and that massive grin returned as he gestured to the table.
"I prepared a fairly simple meal. Steak, mashed potatoes, bread, and some Gouda cheese."
He pointed at each item as he spoke.
"They should all be fine for you to eat. I'm told that our cow is very similar to some of the herd animals your people use for food."